Hello, and welcome to my combat guide for Bloodborne. This is just a bunch of things I feel that I need to showcase because in my experience with Bloodborne, watching people play, or PvP, whatever, co-op, I find there's a lot of tools that people don't utilize, and it's just detrimental to gameplay. I find if you utilize all your tools, you have not only a better time, but you also find the game is way easier. Okay, so to start, obviously got the basics. You got your R1 combos. Everyone knows this. Then you've got your R2s, uncharged, charged. Okay, and you've got running R1s. And there's also running R2s, which are pretty useful. Transforming attacks. Obviously, another obvious one. Just used to transform your weapon during a combo. They're used to extend combos, do better damage, whatever. Okay, so that's the basics. That's pretty obvious. Everyone should have that. If you haven't, you probably shouldn't be playing this game. Backstep. Very cool mechanic, which you can also attack out of. And just as a run, there's also an R2, as well as an R1. Jumping attacks. This is something I find people should use more often, is jumping attack. It's performed by flicking up on the stick and hitting R2. You can do it with, transformed, not transformed. Every weapon has this. Okay, so L2 combos. This is one thing, again, I find a lot of people don't utilize. I find this is more useful for PvP because it's used to mix up opponents, but it can also be used because some weapons have very special L2 combos. So, usually 2 or 3 piece combos, which are unique to each weapon, and it can only be used in the transformed state, as obviously the untransformed state is gonna use your gun because it's an L2 combo. Okay, rolling R1s. I find not super advanced or anything like that, nothing complicated, just very good for positioning, PvE, PvP, anything really. Nothing unique about these. Okay, now plunging attacks. Again, pretty basic, but I'll showcase a trick that I have found that's really useful in Chalice dungeons. Okay, so plunging attack is when you fall off a ledge and press R1, you fall like that, like so. Now the trick is I find, say there's an enemy, you got an enemy right here, you're about to hit him off the ledge, you're near a ledge, you charge an R2, and immediately, oh, I messed that up. And immediately hit R1. If you were to hit the enemy with both of those attacks, you'd hit them with both of the attacks, which can often one-shot enemies in Chalice dungeons. Okay, so that's a cool trick. Now I'll get on to more advanced things. I want to discuss mechanics and whatnot. Okay, so comboing. I find a lot of people in this game, and don't get me wrong, R1 combos are extremely powerful in this game, but if you rely on R1s too much, you're gonna get messed up by PvE, PvP, anyone who knows what they're actually doing. So the key I find, and again, both PvE and PvP, is to delay your attacks. You don't want to just spam R1, because people are they're gonna parry you, they're gonna dodge, whatever. So say, for example, you're attacking an enemy, and you notice they step back, charge an R2. Or if they roll or quick step, charge an R2. Or even differently, you could just go and just change directions. And this is, again, where those L2 combos come in really handy. Okay, and another thing about combos is knockback. Something unique to Bloodborne. This was in Demon Souls, but not in the Dark Souls games. So every weapon has a set amount of knockback, and basically it interrupts opponents' moves the more you hit them. But the stronger, or the bigger the weapon, the more knockback you have. So say, for example, you've got a big enemy, and he's coming at you with a really strong attack, and he looks like he has a wind-up to it. If yours is quicker, you can hit them with yours, and often that will either stagger them long enough for you to move, or just cancel their move completely, which is very, very useful. I find people that just spam R1, that's when they kind of get screwed by a lot of bosses and enemies, especially in Chalice dungeons. Okay, next thing up is the regain mechanic. Regain mechanic is extremely useful. If you don't know what I'm talking about, that's the thing when you regain health when you're damaged. It's there for a reason. A lot of people I find, PvE and PvP, they run away. As soon as they get damaged, they run away, they pop a couple of vials, and that's, you know, yes, you're gonna survive doing that, but at the same time, you could also just strategically dodge, watch your opponent's moves, and then get a couple swings in. And if you get 3 or 4 hits in while your regain meter is still up, you can easily regain as much as a vial. And plus you're doing damage at the same time, so bosses become quicker, you kill people in PvP easier. That's just about it for the regain mechanic. So I find the key to this game especially, it is to all the Souls games, but in Bloodborne especially because it's more based on dodging and being offensive, is managing your stamina. Managing your stamina, the first key is to not spam too much, because if you spam, you're just gonna get caught out of position, you know, someone's gonna see an opening and hit you. And the thing is, too, is about during a combo string, if you shoot during a combo string, your stamina isn't regenning. So you don't want to spam bullets too much during combo string because you want your stamina to regen quicker. Okay, another thing too, which I'm sure most people realize, is invincibility frames. When you roll, there's a certain amount of frames. I don't know the exact frame data for it, but there is quite a few frames of invincibility during this and a quick step. I'm not sure about back steps. I know in Dark Souls you had infinite poise, but I don't know about this game. Okay, and the next trick is something for more advanced players, which I find is pretty much almost necessary in New Game Plus and some of the harder bosses, especially if you're a speedrunner or anything like that, is playing without lock-on. Playing without lock-on is actually way more useful than a lot of people think. It can, first off, rolling is different than quick stepping, but not necessarily better. It can be used in different ways, and you can also control your camera better while you're not locked on, which comes to my next thing, is using the claw technique. Not everyone knows what this is, but it's basically, whereas how most people will use their right thumb for the circle button, if you put your thumb onto the right stick and then put your index finger onto the circle, you can actually run and roll and whatnot while controlling the camera, which is what I'm doing right now. Very useful, I find, especially for adventuring, if you're looking around an area looking for stuff or just looking at scenery. Very, very useful. Okay, so the next thing I want to get into is unique weapons. Weapons with unique attacks, movesets, whatever. Okay, so Blades of Mercy. There isn't much I want to talk about with these, except for this. This is L2 move, which is very good for positioning, seeing as these are obviously positioning based weapons, because they don't have a lot of knockback, and they require a lot of hits to kill things. Okay, next one I want to talk about is the Rider Palash. This one's pretty simple, nothing special, it's just a rapier, but the alternate form and the transform attack. The transform attack from the rapier to the dagger is a gunshot. Which can be very useful to parry and get visceral attacks in the middle of combos. Okay, the Shikage. Now here's a weapon I find a lot of people use in PvP, which is very good. I like it if you have a blood tinge build. But the thing I find a lot of people don't take into account is the HP drain. Yes, everyone realizes, you know, it drains HP when you're holding it, but most people don't realize that it drains HP when you hit R2. And the longer you hold it, the more HP it drains. And I find if you don't take this into account, you're gonna get killed very, very, very quickly. Okay, Rifle Spear. Very, very similar thing to the Rider Palash. The transform attack is a gunshot, except instead of it being a pistol shot, it's a blunderbuss shot. Okay, Stake Driver. This is a unique weapon in and of itself, but I'm not going to get into that. It's charged R2. Oh, transformed charge R2 is extremely powerful. But not only that, it also transforms it back into its default state. Okay, Tonitrus. Tonitrus is one of the few weapons that doesn't actually transform, but its L1 just buffs it with a lightning buff, which is really good for arcane builds. Okay. Logarius Wheel. This is one weapon that eluded me for the longest time. When you transform it, it becomes arcane. It does arcane damage. But if you hit L2, and if you keep repeatedly hitting it, your character will spin the blade and it starts draining HP. I'm not sure about the specifics of this, but I do believe it increases the damage as it drains HP. And for the Beast Claw. Okay, the Beast Claw is a very unique weapon, as most people probably know. If you hit L1, it turns into 2 claws, which is extremely good for stamina consumption, and paired with the Beast Roar and Beast Blood Pellets is a great weapon to get massive combos. Okay, that's it for unique weapons, I believe. I'm not going to go into guns. So, in closing, the thing I gotta say is it's all about preference. Every weapon is good, and I mean that. Literally every weapon in this game can be good if you know what you're doing. It's all about preference, and this game is not a button masher. That's one thing I have to emphasize, is a lot of people come into this, to Bloodborne, Dark Souls, whatever, expecting it to be like, say, God of War, or something like that, where you just, you spam buttons and eventually there's a timing for everything and just kill everything on screen. It doesn't work like that. It's all about timing and playing methodically. You gotta manage your stamina, manage your combos, delay your attacks, and play smart, basically. Okay, so hope this helps. And that's it. Thanks for watching.